So I have actually three of these monitors. One of them is working and is on the machine. Two of them were in non-working states. This is one of them I have not tested yet. I just took it out of its packing and I just noticed that it came with a cable, power cable and VG cable that's cut. So in order to test this, I had to pull the cable from the working machine. Maybe one day later I'll be able to make a cable like this if I can't find it. But we're gonna connect this to an Apple TV and connect some 12-volt power, maybe 1 amp, 2 amps maybe, to this and see if it turns on. I've taken off the outer panel, these, to make it easier to work with. I've connected the, it's like the monitor control panel connector, the Apple TV, which is right here. I might have to power it back off and on, so make sure there's something on the screen. And connect the power, make sure it's not grounded to anything, not touching anything. So for the Apple TV, I'm just gonna quickly unplug and plug it back in. So it's gonna display a screen. And I've connected the power to this power supply, which I will turn on. I've set it for 12 volts, 2 amps. It's not actually sending power to the monitor yet until I push this button. So I'm gonna get ready. I'm gonna push this button and green light turns on. Nothing happens on the screen. You can just see the reflection of my dresser and nothing. So I'm gonna power it off, back on, nothing. We're gonna swap out the main board with the board I had from the other video, which actually displayed something, though it was glitching on the side. And we're gonna see if it actually does display something. That'll tell us whether it's possibly the LCD, the main screen, I'm sorry, the LCD, the back lights, side lights, or the circuit. I just noticed something as I was taking off this old board, and that is when you remove the board, you see those markings match up with these capacitors. So that means they probably were getting really hot. My guess is they're not working the way they should. So we'll check on those later. All right, so we have the other board on, and we're gonna turn the power on. This time it turns yellow. I saw something blink. And it turns green. But this time something blinked. Let's try power it off and on here. Let's try the menu. Still no menu. So let's try powered off and on from the power source. Off and then on. It blinked. So since we know that this board actually worked, the fact that it blinked actually showed something that came from the main board's chip. My guess is the side lights are having issues. Sometimes they blink on and then they fail to stay on. So that's why you see sometimes the first initial blink, then nothing. Let's test this. Let's test the lights. I flipped the panel over and already removed the screws. This is I don't know if they call it a ballast for these. I think it is for the compact fluorescent lights, which are on the top and bottom edge inside under the LCD. Not going to look at that directly yet. We're going to look at this. If you look at this, there are some high voltage signs here saying don't touch this. We're not going to even bother with this. If this piece is bad, we're not going to fix it. We're going to replace it with an LED driver. So we're just going to remove this and not even bother with this, one way or the other. So I ordered these. They're from China. I can't find them anywhere locally, and they take a while to get sometimes. They're just LED replacements. they're wired in such a way that there are certain places you can cut them to shorten their length, because as you can see right now, they're a bit longer than the screen. So there's a spot that you can cut them. Yeah, right there for 15 inches. For 15-inch screen anyway. And then I'm gonna have to wire this through the circuit board. But in order to control the dimming of the screen, I have to wire this a certain way to the main board. As you can see right now, the connector will not fit. Okay, this is the simple version. I only wrote down the pins that we need. So there's 13 pins in here, but we're gonna need the ground, the enable, which basically means turn on the light, the dim, which is basically the voltage increases, and the LED driver will dim the LED. So this is basically the brightness control, and the 12-volt power. Now on the original header, there's two 12-volt powers, there's multiple grounds, but we don't need all of them, we just need one of each. Now on the LED driver, there's only 4 lines coming out. There's the one 12-volt on the top, so they're only using one of the 2 power inputs. The third one is the enable, which is turn on the LED driver. The fourth one is the dim, or the brightness, and there's 2 grounds, but they're only using 1, even though they're driving 2 LEDs. So we just need to have this match up with this by connecting these cables appropriately, and then we're ready to test. So we have the LED cable created. You see it's under here. This is where I connected everything. I just cut off the extra wires and just had them dangling under here, but the 4 wires we needed are now connected to the LED driver, to the 2 LEDs. I've pointed them down because they're kind of bright. I've already cut them to the right length, and they were 17, not 15, like I mentioned earlier. So don't make that mistake. I'm now going to, let's see, make sure we can see this LED light here. I'm going to turn on the power, and the power is powering the LCD board, which is powering and driving the LED board. So at least we know we got the power right, because they're turning on, otherwise they wouldn't have turned on at all. And we have a green light. That's good, because that means it probably has a signal. All right, now taking this off is kind of a chore. There's a digitizer on the front, which is the touchscreen, that needs to come off. And then there's these little wires. Well, we're not going to keep these little wires, so we actually don't care if we break them. There's a plastic housing that channels the wires, and we don't actually care about that either, so we don't care if we break them. But there's a foil cover here, and there's a very sensitive piece of equipment under here. It's the LED, not LED, the LCD driver, which has little ribbon cables that are very delicate. So we want to make sure not to break those. There's also the digitizer cable here. Make sure not to kink this. Now we're going to take off the tape first. And this is a little difficult because it stretches and then it doesn't want to tape back. So on other monitors, I've resealed this with aluminum tape. The main thing we want to do is not rip this, and make sure that when we pull this up, it doesn't pull any cables. Yeah, it's holding this steady so that there's no play with the cables. Yeah, but we do have to remove this. It looks like this one is sealed with a line of adhesive. So if we just break that adhesive, then we can lift up this tape. I did not unscrew this yet because we don't want this board to move. Yeah, and if you do this at home, don't copy me. I recommend being safer than me, especially if you're doing this for somebody else. Like, this is extra throwaway monitors I have. I already have a working machine. These are broken monitors that I'm just looking at. So if you're doing this professionally for somebody else, don't follow me. Just use me as a guide for what I'm looking at. But please do have safer practice as well. Look at this. This board is so thin that it's not even seating properly. When you lift up this tape, there are some contact points you need to loosen. So you need to carefully pry these up. All these metal sections. You can see the tabs. You need to pry those up, including under the taped area. So you have to be very careful not to rip these. And once that's done, there's also some plastic tabs on the side that need to lift up. I'm going to carefully move this sideways, but also be careful because the LCD screen is under the digitizer and it may be loose. You can see that coming out. Okay, there were just some little tabs on the side that were holding it in. And I'm going to be careful not to break any cables. And this is the digitizer. So be careful not to crack this or break this or break that cable. So now we're left with the LCD panel on here, which is actually loose right now. So be careful not to let this drop. We need to make sure to hold the LCD panel when we flip this over because we don't want it to rip out this. Now let's remove this circuit board, which drives the LCD. And very carefully, this can be removed. There's a couple ways to do this. I'm just gonna lift this thing straight up and worry about it later. There's other pieces of a material under here that we'll see. Oh, no, I can't do that. It's not glued, but it's been pressed together so long it's actually kind of stuck, so I can't do that. I'm gonna have to pry this up a little bit. One thing you have to watch out for are these electronic tabs. They're sealed on and kind of heat sealed. If they come off, your LCD is not going to work. Okay, so I am slowly going around under the edges with these little plastic prying tools. And you have to go an inch at a time because you don't want to pressure on the LCD and crack it. And also I'm worried about these little tabs, hoping they're not glued to the bottom. I'll get that side after. You can see that there's a little stretchy rubber. I think it was an insulator or a seal, maybe for liquid, but it's sticky now. All right, so we've removed that. This backlight housing, and it has some reflectors and I think a UV filter that we need to remove. This should be easy now because there's no electronics for us to worry about, just a bunch of tabs. Be careful not to crack the plastic. I'm just lifting the tabs carefully. And I would recommend taking all of these out at once so as not to get dust in between them. There's a piece of glass in here. Be careful, there's paper on one edge, so it reflects light back in. We don't want to lose that paper. And I mean, on this side, there's white paper that falls off sometimes. Let's move that away. This is the housing with the compact fluorescents in here. And we just want to remove them. So I'm just going to lift this up, this piece of metal. Maybe not with that, maybe with this. Just going to cut the wire. Bending this metal up a little bit to release this little soft rubber housing. I'm just going to cut the wire again. And this is the compact fluorescent light. We still have to remove the previous wiring. Well, do we have to move it? It's not actually hurting anything by staying in there. So there's still a wire under here, but it doesn't matter because it's not getting in the way. So we're just going to leave it in there. Now, if you look at this LED, it needs to fit in here. It's a little long. It's a little long because this sticks out. I found that you can actually bend this up and it doesn't hurt it. So we'll do that. There's a sticky backing on here, where they're supposed to be. Oh, this didn't come with it. Oh wait, I think it might be in the container. All right, this was supposed to come with some heat-resistant double-sided tape, but I guess they didn't ship it with me, so I have something very similar. It's a little too thin, so I just made 2 rows of it. And we're just gonna have that stick to inside here. Making sure that the wire is on the proper side. Remember, this is a bit too long. It has to stick out like 1 millimeter on each side. Then we'll just have to bend the metal housing. Okay, that might be good. So we'll just make sure, using this plastic tool. And that's the LED strip on one side. There's still compact fluorescence on the other side. I'm just gonna do the same thing on that side. I'm gonna put this piece of glass back in. Now the LEDs are already in there. Putting this glass in, make sure that the LEDs don't fall out. Once again, make sure that this edge has the white paper. This edge does not. I'm gonna slide the white paper side in first. There we go. By doing this, we make sure that the LEDs don't come out. Now I'm going to flip this over for now, not putting the rest of it back in because I need to channel these wires. Make sure that they're not in the way. Okay, no, it looks like they're good. So in this case, we've used the old channel, the old wire channel. Not necessary, but it looks a little cleaner. Remember, there's 2 wires now. That's good enough. So this part's done. Now let's put the LCD screen back together. It's just the reverse of what we did earlier. Okay, all the filters and the glass is back in. I had mentioned before that the LED was a little long. I actually had to snip off a little, can't see that, get a focus in there. Snip off a little piece of the black plastic so that the LED strip that was a little too long could fit. But as you can see from this angle, it doesn't stick out too far, so everything else is still fit. Now, this LCD, I've not turned it over since I took it off, so it should just go in there, and I looked at it and it seemed very clean, no dust. The top, however, is dirty and dusty, so we'll clean that before we get that on. So we have this on here right now. We are gonna carefully flip that over so that the cables are not stretched out there. We have the touch screen, which I'm going to now. This is the part that's a little tricky because of the cables. There we go. So it looks like everything is in. These cables are in place. This is in place. This is not snagged on anything. And I should be able to screw it back down. This in.
What's funny is when we first opened this, this was warped, and now it's not, and I'm not sure why. It looks like somebody may have put this together before and not have it line up straight. So now I'm gonna lay this back over here. That tape is, that adhesive is actually still sticky, so I'm just gonna leave it alone. So at this point, I'm not yet gonna retape it with anything else, if I do it all, because the original adhesive on the board is still sticky, and we don't know if we have to take this up again. So that's our LCD. Now let's test it. Let me get this all back together, then we'll test it with the working board. Okay, we have the screen back together. A little dirty there. Haven't turned it on yet. Have it on the power supply, 12 volts, 2 amps. The LED drivers are now winded. We know the LED driver works. We have the board that we know works that had a glitch. So if everything else is working, this should turn on. Power. Oh, there we go. We have backlight or side light. That's good. Oh, we have Apple TV. And it glitched a little bit. It'll probably eventually start. Oh, there we go. That's one of the glitches. But that was expected from the board that we were trying just to make sure this works. So from what we can tell, the LCD seems to be working fine. There's no large oddities on there. So far it's a success. So let's try this. Let's try putting the original board back in here. Okay, I have the original board that came with the screen. I'm gonna turn the power on. I'm gonna turn it on. We have backlight. But as you can see, even though there's a green light there, there's nothing on screen. I don't think it's the Apple TV. There's also... nope, that's nothing. That's just a piece of dust. So let me see if we can get the screen menu to come on. The screen menu doesn't even come on, so it has nothing to do with the inputs. So the board is dead. We're gonna try to revive it using the old oven trick, which revived one of the old boards I had before. Let's see what happens.